Okay, we are going to start on Tzaddik Amud Beis. I think it's just worthwhile maybe to just quickly review yesterday's Mishnah that we did, which seems like a fairly innocent Mishnah in terms of, but actually there's a lot more to it than apparently appears at forefront. So originally, back in the day, it was said that three women were able to force their husbands to divorce them the nightless ksuba and claim the money from their ksuba. If a woman would say to her husband that I am tamei to you, I am tamei to you because I was in an improper relationship, and the Gemara will eventually settle on what that relationship was. Shamayim beini lebeincha. It's a euphemism. Only heaven knows what's going on between me and you. Euphemism for the fact that they're not able to have children, and the Gemara will discuss furthermore later on what the specific scenario is where they cannot have children. Or she took on herself a shavua that says, I am usher to all Jews. If I'm usher to all Jews, then I can't be married to you, and therefore I need to exit this marriage. The Chachamim went back and revised this, and they changed it. They were concerned that there were some women who maybe had an eye on somebody else, and they wanted an easy way out of their marriage, so they came home and made a claim. The claim may not have been actually accurate, but they just wanted to get out of the marriage. So, since they had that eye on somebody else, they would instead make their husband look bad. So therefore, if they came home with a claim, so if a woman came home and said, I am usher to you because I had a relationship, she has to bring proof to her claim. Proof being witnesses. She claimed that there's a problem with the ability to make children. He should appeal to her, and can appease her. Appease her. This way, she'll want to stay in the marriage. If she claims that she has taken a vow to not have enough from any Jews whatsoever, the husband should be mefer her neder to the extent that it applies to him. They would have relations. And like any other normal married couple, she would remain usher to all other Jews. The Gemara has a question. If she, so this Mishnah basically seems like it's just a historical context, tells us some history, but in actuality, maybe we can start with the first part of the Mishnah, where the three cases, if she had a relationship, an illicit relationship that she wasn't allowed to be in, so that is a valid reason to annul the marriage. If they can't necessarily have children, it's a valid reason to annul the marriage. The fact that she took on an Isser is a valid reason to annul the marriage. However, the chiddush of the Mishnah is that she can demand a divorce and claim her ksuba. So if she went out and had a relationship, then why does she get her ksuba? If they can't have children combined, then why does she get her ksuba? If she took on a neder that says I'm not going to be part of have anything to do with any Jews, then again, this is her doing. So why does she get her ksuba? And so that's effectively what we're going to discuss in today's Gemara. Furthermore, at the end of the Mishnah, the Mishnah says, so what happened? So there were some women who were taking advantage of the situation. They wanted an easy way out of their marriage, so they would make this claim. So the Gemara says, okay, so if a woman would come to the best stand and claim that she was in an illicit relationship, so what would happen? The base would say, bring witnesses. Okay, so at least this way they can weed out the fakers. In the next case, where she makes a promise, where she says that we can't have children, the Gemara says, Gemara says, so the husband should appease her. But how does that actually stop anybody from making a false claim, or how's that actually going to change the circumstance? So he's going to take her to a nice dinner. He's going to buy her flowers, maybe a piece of jewelry. She wants out of the marriage. She has her eyes on the young guy down the block. Why is she gonna? She's not the young rich guy. She's not going to be necessarily not going to change her mind because the husband appealed to her, try to appease her. Or even if that is the case, subsequent to the fact that she's making this claim, that's not going to stop people from making false claims. Okay, Ibailahu. It's just little ideas that were in my head, and the Gemara will develop some of them. Ibailahu. The Gemara asks a question. So the wife says, makes says to the husband, Tmeani. I am tummy. I am tummy because I was in a illicit relationship. Mahu. So what is the halacha? Does she eat truma? So from this question, we right away becomes crystal clear to us that the case in the Mishnah is not talking about a general relationship, but it's talking about a relationship specific to a kohen, because the Gemara will develop later why that actually must be the case. Rav Shesha says, she does eat truma. Why does she eat truma? So let's take a step back here and even just try to understand this. She comes to her husband and she makes a claim that I am tummy. Why? Because I had an illicit relationship. So did the Beis Din accept her claim, or did the Beis Din not accept her claim? If the Beis Din accepted her claim, then she's divorced. Have a nice day. If the Beis Din didn't accept her claim, then why is she not going to eat truma? So effectively, when Rav Shesha says, so Rav Shesha's over Achela, she does eat truma. Why? He's not necessarily concerned about the facts on the ground, but he's concerned Shalei Teisei Alaz Al Baneha. He doesn't want that a bad name should go out on her children. If she has children, she wants them to get married. He doesn't want a bad name. He doesn't want people saying, "Oh, she's not eating truma because she had an affair with the neighbor down the block." So he's concerned about the reputation of the children. Rava says, she does not eat truma. The fact that she was in a bad relationship and she does eat truma. Efshar, why? She has plenty of food in the storage cabinet. She has plenty of food in the refrigerator that's not truma, that's chulin. She can eat chulin. She doesn't need to eat truma food. She's not gonna go starving. No one's gonna see that she's malnourished. She'll eat the chulin food in the house. So again, the question according to Rava is, why does he have a problem with her eating? Was she guilty of the crime that she claims she did? If she did, then she gets divorced. If she wasn't, then why can't she eat? So I think this has to do with the fact that basically it's like a reputation issue. She created a name for herself now by pronouncing that she had an affair. So having said all that, whether or not she has witnesses to her claim, she has now sort of damaged her reputation, and hence therefore we don't necessarily. She now has put herself in a bad light, and there's now an opinion that because she has created a name for herself, she may or may not be entitled to continue eating truma. Because if she was guilty of what she claimed she was guilty, she had witnesses, and not only would she have been able to get out of the marriage, she would have been able to collect her ksuba. She wouldn't still be in the marriage eating truma.
Wouldn't it be difficult to for that, for a woman to have an affair and also have witnesses? Say that again.
Things were different, but I think there are. I don't know what the witnesses. I'm not sure exactly sure what the witnesses testify. Do they testify just that they saw her and him being secluded together, or do they have to? I don't know if they actually have to witness the act. They just think that they can witness some of the circumstances that support her claim.
But I would think that if someone's going to do something like that, they're not going to be crazy, do it.
Well, she clearly is, because she wants out of the marriage.
But it might. So then she could have done it.
Well, we're actually the case that the Gemara is going to settle on at the end of how this actually happened will kind of answer your questions.
The finish here is that usually there's no stronger evidence than what a person says about himself or herself.
But there's also
But here, it's not believed because she may have an ulterior. motive.
absolutely. But there's also a case, and I didn't understand why, and I didn't get to ask the question. There was also an idea that Aina did Nasa as a Russia. A person doesn't make himself into a Russia. So we don't trust. We often don't trust a person to make himself a Russia. So why would a person go and pronounce these things and we say, "Oh, okay, that makes sense." Yeah. So yeah, that's something I don't have an answer to. Okay, so there's an argument in our Gemara here between Rav Sheshes, who says that she does eat truma, and Rava, who says he does not eat truma. She does not eat truma. None of them are arguing whether or not she committed her act or whether or not she's entitled to eat truma. Each one has their logic. Rav Sheshes is worried about the kids, and Rava is not worried about the kids. She'll eat plenty. Amar Rava. Rava says, "Umayda Rav Sheshes," and even though me and Rav Sheshes have a disagreement as to whether or not she eats truma, Rav Sheshes will agree that if the husband passes away, she's not. Once the husband passes away, she's done eating truma. No more truma. Ordinarily, if a individual is married to a kohen and the kohen passes away, so she does not continue to eat truma. Having said that, if she has children, then she continues eating truma on behalf of the fact that she's still connected through her children. So in this case, we're discussing clearly that there are children in the world. So the husband passed away, she doesn't continue to eat truma, even though she has children from this relationship. Midi, who taima. What was the reason that she was allowed to continue eating truma, at least according to Rav Sheshes? The only problem that you were worried about is that you were concerned that her kids would get a bad reputation. Now that the husband has passed away, or they got divorced. And this wording is extremely challenging to me. I didn't understand what does it mean to get divorced. If she got divorced, then why is she eating truma? But I think the Gemara will kind of touch upon this a little bit later. Amri hashta the ist nisa. That now that she got divorced, now that her husband passed away, and now people don't see her eating truma, so people will say, "Oh, whatever she did wrong that caused her to lose her truma ability happened after the father passed away." If there's a word out there that she had an affair during her married life, there might be a cast out on the children. Whose children are these? But if the word on the street relating to her relationship comes out after the father passes away, why is there a rumor on the street? There's a rumor on the street because the fact that she's no longer eating truma. People don't see if she's eating truma. Oh, what's going on? So if that rumor starts during her husband's lifetime, so there's going to be a concern out there that maybe there's going to be she's going to have a reputation that she was in an affair, and now there's going to be a bad name on the kids. We're not going to be sure whose kids are these anyways. We know who the mother is. We're not quite sure who the father is. Okay, but if that happened if the word on the street is generated after the father passes away, the kid's already born, we're not worried that it's going to damage the kid's reputation. Amar Rav Papa. Rav Papa says, "Badigla Rava." Rava asked a question to, I believe, his talmidim. Eshes kayin shenensa, the wife of a kayin who was raped. Yesh la ksuba, ayin la ksuba. Does she get her ksuba money or does she not get her ksuba money? So in this case, in the Gemara, we've been discussing a kind of a generic scenario where a lady makes a claim that she had an affair, and therefore she can force her divorce and claim her ksuba, which is contrary to what we generally understand. If she did something wrong, then she doesn't get her ksuba. We're going to learn Gemara Saita that if she willingly has an affair with somebody, she's out in the street and there's no ksuba. So our general case here in the Mishnah is kind of vague as to what we're talking about when she claims that she had this affair. So Rav Sheshes asked a question, a generic question, which will kind of lead us to our answer. Eshes kayin shenensa, the wife of a kayin who was raped. Yesh like ksuba, ayin like ksuba. Does she get her ksuba money or does she not get her ksuba money? Even the ainus legabi kayin kiratzin legabi Yisrael. The ainus of a kayin, the wife of a kayin, is deemed the same as a willful relationship of legabi Yisrael. What does that mean? That means that the wife of a Yisrael who had an affair, she is divorced on the street. The wife of a kayin who was forced into a relationship, who was raped effectively, she is also out in the street. So the treatment is exactly the same. Both of them are divorced. The wife of a Yisrael who was raped can still go back to her marriage, but the wife of a Kayan who was raped, she's not allowed to be with her husband anymore. So the treatment of a wife of a Yisrael is the same as the treatment of a who had an affair is the same as the wife of a Kayan who was raped. So even the Ayin is like, I'm sorry.
What do you mean the treatment was the same? But the
wife
of Yisrael can still be with her husband if she
if
was
a wife
raped.
had an affair, a willing affair.
But then you made the analogy to
And a wife of
a coin that was raped.
Right. So
it's
the-
two different cases.
I'm down,
No.
let him talk.
No, the
I'm
treat
listening to it.
We know you're fighting over.
the treatment is the same, which means that the wife of the Yisrael, if she had a willing affair, she's out. She's divorced.
Right.
Okay. A Kayan whose wife was raped, she can't go back to her husband. They're forced to divorce.
Right.
So the end result is the same. We treat the wife of a Yisrael who is in a willing relationship in the same manner that we treat the wife of a Kayan who was forced.
Okay. No, I got that. It's just two different situations.
100%. So that's the question of the Gemara. Kiva the Einus Legabe Kayin. Since we treat a wife who was forced, the wife of a Kayin who was forced, Karatzin Legabe Yisrael, like the wife of Yisrael who did so willingly. Legabe Yisrael Dami. Ein la ksuba. Ideal. Then so similarly there shouldn't be a ksuba. Just like the Yisrael's wife goes out without a ksuba because she had a willing affair. So too, the Kain's wife, since he's treated in the same manner as the Yisrael's wife, maybe she shouldn't get her ksuba either. Dilma, or maybe Matzi Amrale, she can say to the husband, Anaha Chazina, I'm just fine. I was raped. I didn't do anything wrong here. I was forced. The Gavra who did Nistapcha Sadeu, it's the Gavra who is the man, it's you, the husband, the Nistapcha Sadeu that had his field flooded. You had bad luck. It's your problem that you're a Kayan. I didn't do anything wrong. I was an innocent bystander here. I was raped. I shouldn't get punished.
And she can prove it because she can marry a Jew. The problem is.
Absolutely,
him, that he's the
exactly.
It's not her problem.
So does she get her ksuba or does she not get her ksuba? So yeah.
Sorry. Those two, they don't seem to, at least to me, they don't seem to match because one was willingly and one was not willingly.
Yeah, absolutely. 100. That's exactly the question of the Gemara. So this one was willing, it wasn't willing. So do we treat them the same?
No, I know.
Because does the end result, not that we think one is better or worse, but is the end result going to be the same? Because at the end of the day, both of them have to get divorced. So do they both get divorced without the ksuba? Or in the case of the kain, can she make the claim and say, it's bad enough you're forcing me, it's bad enough I got raped, it's bad enough you're ruining my marriage and forcing me to get divorced. I also have to lose my ksuba money. So she can make that claim and say, it's not on me, it's on you. You're the husband. And in order, if it wasn't for you, the husband, the kain, I'd still be happily married and go back to my house. So Rava posed this question, and they answered him. How do they answer him? They answered him by referring to a Mishnah. Which Mishnah? Our Mishnah, the one we just learned. Masnisin here. There's a Mishnah, Himeris, that says, Himeris Tamea Anilach. If a wife comes home to her home and she claims to her husband that I am Tameh. Why am I Tameh? Because I was in a relationship, an improper relationship. Yesh la ksuba. The Gemara says, the Mishnah says, we just learned here, that there are 3 cases where she can make a claim, force the divorce, and get her ksuba. So the answer to this question is, we have a Mishnah that says that if she comes home and claims that I am Tameh, yesh la ksuba, she gets her ksuba. So, but my askina, what are we dealing with? What case are we dealing with in this Mishnah? If you want to say that our Mishnah that we're trying to use as proof to answer this question about the Kayin is a Yisrael, Ibaras and Klum Yeshla. If Yeshla Ksuba, if an Eshes Yisrael had a willing affair, she doesn't get a Ksuba. She had an affair, she gets thrown out in the street. The Iba Ainis, my Kamistra, Al Gavra. If it was, that's right. And if it was that she was raped, Mika Misra Al Gabra. So then why is she forbidden to go back to her husband? So the case in the Mishnah, we talked about this out loud, is that if she's a Yisrael and it was willingly, so then she's divorced. If she was a Yisrael and she was forced and she can go back to her husband, it's not a problem. So therefore, the only way we can understand this Mishnah properly is Be'eshes Kayin, regarding the wife of a Kayin. Ibaratzin Klum Yeshla. If she willingly had an affair, then obviously she gets nothing. Yeah, Ibrasin klum yesh la ksuba. If it was willingly, she does not get any ksuba. I'm forgetting something. Hold on a second. I'm making a mistake here. Elevation is crying. Ibras and klum. If it was willingly, klum yeshla ksuba. If she was willingly, she gets a ksuba. Migara meishis yisrael baratzin elalav ba'inus. Who is causing? I'm forgetting the exact translation here. Migara meishis yisrael baratzin elalav ba'inus. We have to assume here. I'm just translating out loud that the only way to understand this Mishnah, where the wife can make a claim that she was in a relationship and get her ksuba, has to be that it was a kain and she was forced. So that answers the katani yesh ksuba. We learned in the Mishnah that she gets her ksuba. So that answers Rava's question. Rava posed a question: does a kain who got divorced, who got raped, get her ksuba money? And the answer to the question is reference back to our Mishnah. Our Mishnah has a case of a wife who made a claim. Which kind of wife are we talking about? It has to be the wife of a kain who was raped. So we know from our Mishnah that the wife of a kain who was raped gets her ksuba money. I'll ask another question. A wife comes to her husband and makes a claim and says, "You divorced me." Why is she making this claim? Maybe because she wants her ksuba money, or maybe because she wants to move on with her life and marry someone else. So Mahu, what is the halacha? Do we trust her? We're talking about a situation here where she makes a claim that she was divorced, but she doesn't actually have a get with her. Amar Rav Amnuna.
Can I ask a question for a second? No, the ksuba, is that considered a fine for divorcing, or is it considered insurance for the woman? Because here the husband, the Cohen, did nothing wrong, and yet he has to give her money, which sounds like we're fining him for something he didn't do wrong. Or are we feeling sorry for the woman and saying, well, unfortunately, you can't go back to him, but you have insurance, it's a ksuba.
Well,
And we never discussed that.
she was raped and she didn't do anything wrong either.
Right,
That's the whole issue here.
yeah.
Why should
But-
she suffer? She didn't do
No, I
anything
agree.
wrong.
Why should she suffer? Well, why does he have to pay?
I think a ksuba is more like a prenup. Basically, we don't want them fighting.
So it's insurance.
I mean, it's an insurance. It's basically a way to settle the deal. And when instead of going to court and fighting over everything, this is what's in advance. You're getting 200 zuzim.
But that's what I was saying. Is it a fine on the husband, or is it
A prenup is not fine. A
Insurance.
prenup is a way to
Prenup,
make
I
sure
like
that
the
everything gets divided equally. I mean, everything gets
the
divided. in a
question may
peaceful
have been
manner.
over, but the answer's not over. I'm going to take that phone and throw it against the wall.
All right. So Ibailu, we have a question. Amrla Baila Gerashtani. The wife claims that she is divorced, but she doesn't have a get with her. So Mahu, what is the law? Amrav Luna says Tashma. He's going to answer that general question by referring to a Mishnah. Which Mishnah? Our Mishnah. If a wife comes home and makes a claim and says, "I am tamei to you," so in our Mishnah we had two versions: how things originally were and how things were revised at a later time. Even according to the second half of the Mishnah, the Ketani, why mehem, that we say that when she makes this claim, she's not believed. Hasam, Hasam hu de mishakra the day. That is because when she comes and makes a claim and says that I am tamei to my husband because I was involved in an improper relationship, it's because she is telling a lie that only she knows about. Her husband has no way of refuting her claim. Her husband can't say, husband got up in the morning, went to work out in the woods chopping wood. He comes home from a hard day of work, and his wife says, "Oh yeah, while you were out working today, I had an affair." Okay, he has no way of refuting that. That's a claim she's making. She can't. It's a lie that only she knows about. The husband has no way of refuting that law. He has no way of proving that she didn't have an affair.
Is she saying that she had an affair or that she was raped?
Well, she said, and the way we learned the Mishnah, I'm tamei to you. I am tamei to you. It's a kind of a generic language. We've broken it down now to understand that it has to be a specific case of a kayin who was raped. But in the general understanding of the Mishnah, it's just the generic understanding that I was in an improper relationship. What that was specifically is up for debate. Because yeah, in any of these, anytime you're going to read the Mishnah, you're going to ask, well, if I went down the block and we had an affair, then you don't get a ksuba. But that's not what we're discussing. That we're discussing whether or not how we treat her claim and why did we even entertain it. So in the case of where she came home and said she's tamei, the Meshachar today, it's a lie of hers. It's a lie. Only she knows. It's that if she's making up this false claim, she just wants to get out of the marriage, and she's just lying about it. She's the only one in the world who knows it's a lie. The Baila Layadaba, the husband has no way of knowing whether or not she's telling the truth or telling a lie. Avol Gabi Gerashtani, when it comes to the claim that she says, you divorced me, Dideba, he knows about it, obviously. So if we have a question, a woman comes to her husband and says, we got divorced, what are you doing in my living room? Okay? He says, what do you mean we got divorced? So do we believe her or do we not believe her? Okay? So we're trying to say, well, in the case of our Mishnah, what happened? She made a claim and we believed her. However, the case in our Mishnah is one where she can make a claim and the husband has no way of refuting it. In the case of it, she claims we were divorced. The husband can say, what are you talking about divorce? We never got divorced. Where did that come from? He can easily refute it, right?
But we didn't take her word for the illicit relationship because we said that she needed two witnesses, no?
In the second half of the Mishnah, yeah. Mehemna, so therefore she is believed. Since the husband can refute the claim, when she makes the claim, she is believed. Why? The chazaka is a chazaka that ein isha me'iza paneha bifnei baila. That a wife is not going to be so bolden to just make up a flat out lie in front of her husband. And frankly, you can apply this to any two individuals. If me and you know something, we did a business deal, you're not going to just come and make a bold, brazen lie or say something that completely makes no sense that I know that you can easily refute. So in the case where she stands up and says, Gerashtani, we're divorced, and she doesn't necessarily have her get with her, okay, she's generally going to be trusted because a person's not going to make up a lie that the person right in front of her can refute in 2 seconds.
We didn't involve Metzia.
I said, how do we know that? We know that from our Mishnah, not because our Mishnah discusses it specifically, but it's seemingly our Mishnah says we only pay attention to the lie because no one else can refute it. So the flip side of that is we say if someone could refute the lie, then we don't trust the lie. Amrle Rava says, Adarava, on the contrary, I made this up a little note here because I had to remember what this Adarava is. Basically, oh no, I'm sorry, scratch that. We're not there yet. Afilu Mishnah Rishayna, even according to the first part of the Mishnah, the Katani we learned from the first part of the Mishnah, the Katani Mehemna, where we said she is believed. See, in the second part of the Mishnah, we said, okay, you made a claim, you have to bring witnesses. The first part of the Mishnah, we just say flat out she's believed. Hasam, why? In the first part of the Mishnah, she made a claim that I had an affair. Okay, and whatever her motivation is, at the end of the day, it's not the kind of thing you walk around and brag about. Generally, you don't walk around and tell people that, hey, I ruined my marriage, I had an affair. It's not the kind of thing you brag about. But over here, it could be in this case where she's making a claim that we got divorced. The zimnin de takivla. There are times when she is married, min gavra to this man, and she's I think it means like she's very disgusted from him. She's not happy in this marriage. She wants out. So she's not embarrassed to say, we got divorced already. You know, she would probably be embarrassed to walk around and say, I had an affair, but she's not embarrassed to say that I want out of this marriage. So we had a situation here where we asked the question whether or not a person makes a claim that she was divorced without a get, will we trust her? So what happened here? Rav Hamnuna tried to use our Mishnah as proof that yes, we would believe her. Why? Because a person doesn't make a brazen claim. A person only makes a claim such as I had an affair, but only makes that claim, but no one else can refute it. Rava says, no, on the contrary, we're not learning it. I'm learning the opposite from the exact same Mishnah. In our Mishnah, we see a case where a person is not going to be so quick to make a claim because it's going to damage their relationship. but the person would be much more willing to make a claim if it'll help them get out of their marriage. Masi Rav Basharshish. Rav Basharshish asked a question. We're moving on to the next part of our Mishnah. Hashemayim beini leveinach. The wife claims that there is a scenario, something going on in the house. Only heaven knows what's going on between me and my husband. It's a euphemism for the fact that basically they cannot have children. The Mishnah Rishona, in the first part of the Mishnah, Tiyufta to Rava. This is a refutation on Rava. What does Rava say? Rava claims that a person doesn't create a bad name for himself. Won't go out and make a claim that is derogatory to themselves. In this case, where she makes a claim that they're not able to have children, there is no effective. There's nothing negative. There's nothing negative about her claim here. The Katani, and we learned the Mehemna, that she is believed by making this claim that they can't have children as a couple. She's not saying anything negative about herself. She's not saying anything that's derogatory about herself. So if Rava's belief is that we believe her only because she said something derogatory and made herself look bad, then why in this case is she believed? To say we can't have children, okay, fine, you're believed, you get your ksuba, you get your get, and you get your ksuba. So why is so? It seems like it's a repudiation of Rava. So Rava said, Rava will hold Hasam. No, over there, Kivan Delay Sagila. It's not enough that she didn't just say anything, meaning to say she's not able to come to base and just come up with a general claim, we're not able to have children. Rava says, no, it's not enough. She has to come give us specifics.
Excuse me, what kind of specific? They either have children after 10 years.
Exactly the next words.
Oh,
The lashon that the Gemara uses, if he's shooting arrows or not. So basically, she has shooting blanks, exactly. So basically, he has to come and make a specific. She has to come to base and make a specific claim that it's not me, it's him, and she has to discuss in detail what the problems is, why they're not having children.
But that's kind of like the default. Whenever the kids aren't happening, one blames the other.
Yeah, obviously, but it's not just saying it's his fault. She has to explain the details as to what's wrong with him physically. That it's not that he's not shooting arrows.
Family shear, so we're not going to get into the detail.
But there'll be nobody to refute that. Like if she comes up with a lie there.
That's right.
There'll be no one to refute that. He can refute it. He can say, I'm shooting blanks just wonderfully.
That's right.
Yeah, of course. And we're going to see that. We're going to see that. I forget how this gets translated. So okay, let me go back just a couple seconds. Because I mean, Rava says, "Hasam kivan delay saga." Rava says, "No, it's not the case. She's going to have to go into the details. It's not. We don't accept the fact that she just comes and makes a claim. She's going to be required to detail whether or not he's shooting arrows or not." So we don't believe her if she just comes and says nothing. She actually does have to come and discuss the details, and because she has to come to discuss the details, it's a lot of all kinds of negative, derogatory information, and therefore Rava says because you are having to go into uncomfortable territory, you wouldn't necessarily go there. He says no. This Mishnah does support my belief that we believe her only if she is forced to be uncomfortable. This claim regarding her, the fact that only heavens knows what's going on between me and between her, and between me and between her, you, the Mishnah Achrona to Rav Hamnuna. So now the Gemara first tried to say that our Mishnah is going to be a repudiation against Rava. But Rava says, no, it's not a repudiation against me. I believe that this is an uncomfortable situation. So now the Gemara says, okay, you know what? Our Mishnah actually is going to be a repudiation against Rav Hamnuna. Why? Rav Hamnuna was of the belief that a person doesn't brazenly lie when someone else can refute it. That's what you just mentioned. And behold, here, this is a situation where she knows it. Ubaila yada ba. And the Baila also knows it, so he can obviously refute what's going on here. The Katani delay mehemna, and we believe that And we say that she is not believed, at least in the second half of the Mishnah. We say, no, we don't, in the second half of the Mishnah, we don't say she's not believed. We just don't let her get out of her, we don't let her get out of her marriage with it. So when she makes a claim and says, my husband's not, we're not having children and it's my husband's fault. In the first case of the Mishnah, we said, yeah, you're right. You can get divorced and you can get your ksuba money. You were wrong. You got damaged goods. But in the second half of the Mishnah, we don't say that. We say, you don't get your divorce and your ksuba so quickly. Let the husband try to appease her and let her hopefully work things out. And this way she'll, she won't have to get divorced. So in the case of the Mishnah, it seems like he knows, she knows, and she's not believed. Because Rav Hamnuna says, "Hachanami he gufa amra." She is. Oh, that's right. Hachanami over here too. He gufa amra. She says to herself. She thinks to herself that she knows this, but her husband doesn't know this. The bevei yada beyeres chetz, that she knows about the fact that this husband is not necessarily shooting arrows. And because of this, she lies. In her head, she basically thinks when she's making this claim that I know what's going on, but my husband doesn't. So therefore, she's willing to go forth and make this. She thinks in her head that she knows about it and her husband knows about it. She understands this. I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm doing this backward, my mistake. She believes in her head that she is the one who knows it, but he doesn't. She thinks, in her head, she says, my husband thinks that everything is good, but I know it's not good, and therefore she's willing to make this claim. But on the forefront of it, obviously you would think both of them know about it, right? So she's not. So our Rav Hanuna's position in our Mishnah was that a person doesn't brazenly lie. She comes to the Beis Din and she says, we're not having children. It's because he's not shooting arrows. That seems to be an easy case because he can obviously refute that. So it goes back. So therefore, she would be brazenly lying because he can easily refute it. The Mishnah says no. The Gemara says no because in her head she thinks that he doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't realize what the problem is. So therefore, he's not going to be able to refute it. So that's why she is not necessarily trusted in the second half of the Mishnah. So first we tried to bring the Mishnah as a proof to Rava. Rava's claim is that a person doesn't provide derogatory information, and so only is trusted if she says derogatory information. And in the first part of the Mishnah, there was no derogatory information. She just made a claim that we're not able to have children, and we believed her. So Rava says, no, that's not the case. It is derogatory. Why? Because we don't just believe her on her word that they can't have children. We make her go into the details. Then we try to use the second half of the Mishnah to say, oh, you know what? This is a refutation on Rav Hamnuna. Rav Hamnuna says that a person only doesn't lie, that a person won't brazenly lie when the other person can easily refute it, and therefore we believe her. But in this case, in theory, he could obviously easily refute it. The Gemara says, no, she thinks when she makes the claim that he doesn't know the details, and therefore he doesn't have the ability to refute it. So therefore, the Rav Hamnuna says, no, the Mishnah is not a contradiction to my belief, and that's why she continues to remain untrusted. All right.
Quick question. I'm not so expecting you to know the answer. We're using a lot of euphemisms here.
Yeah.
Is this about the force of the
Yes.
ejaculation? That's what
Yes.
she's saying is not shooting real
Yes.
arrows?
Yeah.
And is that medically the understanding today?
Well,
that
no,
it's a predictor?
nowadays it's the let's say this on PG rated.
So we're
It's
family
what
shear,
it's
we have friends
that
in Morocco.
which is able to do its job,
Like the count.
right? The count.
Oh.
And we're not talking about Monte Cristo.
It's related to the count. That's the view today.
The count, yeah. The count would be.
And is that related to the force?
I think that's the euphemism that they use. The force. The reality is that the woman doesn't really know on the inside what's
Hey,
going
come
on.
Just-
No,
But she thinks
There's
she
no-
thinks she does.
she thinks
She thinks
that's
they
right.
all think.
There you go.
But
She
you know what I'm
doesn't
saying?
sense it.
Unfortunately,
This
I've
is
seen
not
like that
talking
between
about.
couples, and nobody says, "Oh, I'm the default. I'm
Oh,
not,
for sure, for
I'm
sure.
the defective item." You know,
For
they always
sure.
blame the other
That's
one.
for sure. All right. Gemara is going to end off now with
That's all right.
two stories, and then I'm going to leave the last few lines for Rabbi Smith to finish the siyum. Hahu Itza, there was a lady to call Yemet the Tashmish. Every time that her and her husband had relations, Mikdama Mashiach Yedel Ligaf. She would set up a bucket of water for her husband to wash his hands. Yemachad, one morning, it's Asiya li my mea limimsha. I'm not pronouncing some of these words correctly. I apologize. One morning he gets up and she brings him a bucket of water to wash his hands. Amrullah, he says to her, Adam Milsa, have the evening. What are you bringing me a bucket of water? There was nothing. There was no relations last night. Amrullah, she says to him, Im Kain, Chad mina nachrim. Maybe it was one of the goyim. We have some guys in the neighborhood who are selling incense. I must have had a relationship with one of them last night. I mean, I had relations last night. If it wasn't you,
It was Louis.
the Havihacha Ha'idna I'ant life. If it wasn't you, then Dilma Minahain. Maybe it was one of them. He says to her, I mean, I don't know about you. I had relations last night. If it wasn't you, then I guess it must have been one of the traveling salesmen who's running around town right now. Rav Nachman says, this goes back to our mission. So the Gemara says we don't trust her because we think that maybe she has her eyes on somebody else. So lesba mishasha be lesba mishasha be mila, and we don't put any weight into her words. So basically, she woke up in the morning and she made a claim. I had relations last night. It wasn't you. Oh, must be someone else. Oh well, I guess we have to get divorced now because I had a willing relationship with someone illicit. Gemara says, no. She probably just has her eyes on someone else, like we said in the second half of the Mishnah, which is why we changed the rules. And therefore, if she makes this claim in the morning, she better have witnesses.
Is this? Could this might be referring to, like maybe like in her dreams? But it could just like
No.
The point of this is that she's making. The point of this Gemara is to say that if she makes a claim, like we see in the second half of the Mishnah, we don't believe her because we're concerned that she may have her eyes on another guy. She wants to get out of this marriage. And she's just making up a story when she wakes up in the morning. Unless you got witnesses, we don't believe you because we think you may have an ulterior motive. The Gemara tells us another story, another similar story. If you think we're definitely leaving the PG territory. There was a lady, the lay have a bedicha. She was never bedicha daita. She was never had a peace of mind with her husband. She was always unhappy. One day he says to her, Mai, Shna. He says, okay, what's going on today? You're walking around with a scowl on her face, you're unhappy. What's wrong today? Malay, she says to him, Ma'aylam, light sartan b'derech eretz ki ha'idna. Ma'aylam, forever, never in my life, light sartan, I didn't have as much pain b'derech eretz. B'derech eretz is a euphemism for relations, ki ha'idna, like I have today. I'm in so much pain from what happened last night.
Is she meaning they're complimentary? Like, oh man, last night was
I don't know if it's complimentary or not. She's just absurd. She's walking around with a limp today. She's in pain from what happened last night. Allah, he says to her, there was no such thing last night. We didn't have relations last night. What are you talking about? She says to him, Im Kain, Halain Nachrim Niftui. It must have been that I had relations with the guy Niftui is like also another version of the spice seller, who's the Havihacha. Oil merchants. Okay, the Havihacha. That are hanging out around the town. Oh, I'm in pain this morning. It must be from I had relations. It wasn't from you. Then it must be from one of the guys down the street who are busy selling merchandise. Life. It wasn't you that I'm in pain from. Then Dilma Chad Min Hain. Maybe it's from one of the people, one of the wandering young salesmen in town. Who Rav Nachman says to them, Light Tashgichun Ba. We don't pay, again, another version. We don't follow up on her claim here. They send us a no. We are concerned that maybe she has her eyes on somebody else and she's just coming up with a claim, and therefore we pay no attention to. So these are two stories that the Gemara gives us just to further prove to further up on our point that the Mishnah says why things change from the early years to later years that originally we may have believed her claim, but eventually at some point in time, this was happening too often, and we were suspicious that maybe she wanted it out of her marriage. So she'd make up a claim. She'd wake up in the morning and say, boy, last night was good. And there was no last night. And so, we were worried that, well, she nothing really happened last night. She was just using it as a way to get out of her marriage.
Yes,
On that note, we're going to leave for the last one or two juicy stories for Rabbi Smith to finish up.
And don't forget to come tomorrow to the first page of Nazir. All right, be prepared. Nazir is really cool stuff. Okay.
Thank you. Good day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Got to plug it. We leave it downstairs.
Kultov. Shkoyach going.